I heard about El Barrio Escondido because one time I was talking to someone and he asked me, where do you live? And I told him, I said, well, my parents lived on West Sunset. He said, oh, you're from El Barrio Escondido. And I said, well, I never realized it was called El Barrio Escondido. I says, but I can understand why, because there were very few Hispanics that lived in the area. The ones that lived in the area were the ones that worked at Cementville, the plant. And then my dad had that business and he catered to all of these workmen from that plant. And I went to Alamo Heights High School 1 year and there was just a handful of Mexicanos that went to that high school.
But you know, when Father built that house there weren't any houses. I remember it was just trees and, you know, because he had to clear out the area before they started building the house. And we used to live off of Nacogdoches at that time. Okay. At this place where the doctor, he was a doctor and he had like a house in the back that we could live there. Wow. But my father had to take care of the, you know, yard and all that, the maintenance around the house. And he would let us rent for free there. And that's when I guess my dad decided to build a house, you know, because it was already time for him to, you know, put us somewhere.
My dad had a little molino there, a little molino before he built that bigger store. And my mother would help him. They would grind the corn and make everything from scratch. They would cook the corn and then they would wash it, grind it, and make the masa and run it through the machine. We did have a little machine that that you could use, but they were all made, you know, fresh every day. So, and the people from Cementville really, I guess, appreciated him coming by every single day. My dad would do that at first, and then later you started helping make deliveries, because people would say that they needed milk or something, and in the afternoon, like around 5 or 6, he would go back and take groceries to whoever ordered him something extra.
And when he was working, because he used to work for the railroad at that time too.
Yeah, he had 2 jobs.
So he used to, if he went in at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, well, he wouldn't get off till 11, so I would help him out to do the deliveries, whatever they ordered. Because they would call in and my mother would take the order and then, you know. Yeah. So I started driving when I was about 13, you know, because I used to go help him a lot too.
No, we didn't have no driver's license either. We just drove.
No, I didn't take mine out till I was 30 years old. I think that's because I got in line. I didn't know they were checking license. But that's how my dad got, you know, the people from Cementville used to really appreciate and care for him because he was always there for them. And he wouldn't, like if they didn't have the money to pay them, pay him, they would pay him every payday. He would just have a little tablet where he would write down whatever.
And then also, like at Christmas time, when you read that article, it talks about at Christmas time, my dad would always prepare. He would go to the downtown to El Mercado and he would buy a bunch of oranges or apples or whatever, and he makes little bags of fruits. He would put fruit inside the bags and he would take them to his customers. And that was his way of showing gratification, you know. So he would take them that, and the people appreciated that. My dad was very charismatic, bien platicador. I mean, he was a people-friendly talker. He always made conversation. My mother would get upset with him sometimes. Oh, you're always talking to the people, blah, blah, blah. My mother was very quiet and reserved, but that's the way he treated people. He was a people person. Okay, so this is a picture that I drew there at the senior center. Is that District 3, I believe? And we were asked to draw a picture of something historical from our family And I right away thought that this was very appropriate because my dad's store, like I said, was built back in the, I guess, 60s, early 60s. And I don't know how much longer it'll be there. But there's 2 picture windows. This is my dad holding a can of something that he was probably going to put, he was putting up.
He was dusting.
And then this is his little troquita that he used to drive around to the mercado. He would put all the groceries in the back and he would go to the Cementville to deliver. And this little bench here, I don't know if you remember, but I remember sitting, they used to have a little bench in the front, and I remember sitting here with my mom on summer nights because my dad would work at night with the Missouri Pacific Railroad, and my mother would stay at the store till 10 o'clock at night. So sometimes I would sit there with her, you know, in the evenings when there wasn't too much business going on. And the building is still there, but now it's known as Zarazua's Cafe. It's a restaurant. My brother, Carlos, and his wife, Minerva, run the business now. But my father was truly very passionate about his work. He loved doing what he did. And his business was on 400 West Sunset.
It's a beautiful thing too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like I said, you know, knowing that my dad was able to accomplish so much, having all this property in Alamo Heights, not knowing that that property was going to be valued so much later on, you know. Even my brother now, they've come to him several times. Businessmen have gone there. They want to buy him out. And, you know, I says, yeah, they want you to sell, but they don't want to give you what you want. And he says, yeah. I says, well, you know, my dad sacrificed a lot because to have what he had, he used to, you know, have 2 jobs. You know, he used to work at the store, then he'd work at the railroad tracks, with the Missouri Pacific, and he'd come home at 11 o'clock and he'd go back to the store, get it ready for the next morning. By 5 o'clock in the morning, or 5:30, he'd be there at the store already getting it ready for the day's work. So I saw a lot of sacrifice that my parents, both of my parents, made. And to me, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on that property, and that's why I value it so much. And you didn't tell them that my dad and mom actually lived on a boxcar off of the railroad tracks right there on
Yeah, well, that's where I was
Jones. Is Jones Maltzberger? They actually lived in a boxcar there, right? I remember my mom telling me about it, and supposedly back then there were these what do they call them? Les decían trampas, pero they were like
hobos.
Something like that, and they went into the boxcar and they stole her wedding ring, and she always used to talk about that they had stolen her wedding ring. But that's how they started out, also right there in that little boxcar. I can't believe they lived in a boxcar.
Was that just them, or was it like a lot of people that lived?
I think it was just them and maybe another person that used to do like what Father did, you know, because they used to fix the tracks or something. I think that's how they gave him a place to live on those.
Yeah.
But I think me and Raul were born
because back then the doctors came to you, right?
So you were born in the boxcar where they were living?
Mm-hmm.